Throughout the entirety of my time spent watching anime, I never had any particular genres that I would prefer over the other, or a genre that, for me, is the be-all end-all of animes with that said genre being the main theme of any said anime. However, there will always be that one genre that I will keep on running back to, especially when my days are its worst, or I would just not be in the mood to do anything, and even at times where lifting my limbs will be equivalent to an entire workout routine done at 6 AM in the morning. That specific genre, with the right timing and situation, is the same feeling you get when you just ate your favorite cake and your brain suddenly explodes after being bombarded with a surge of just pure serotonin and endorphin rush. The number one genre that I always come back to is the romance genre. I know, you all must be asking, well, Mr. YouTuber, aren't you just lonely? Well, you're goddamn right. Not only do I not have a friend or a girl who is a friend, let alone a girlfriend, even girls in gacha games avoid me left and right as if I am not as down bad as it is. Well, but it's all the more reason for me to just sit back, relax, kick my feet up, let my coping mechanisms kick in, and further deepen my insecurities of not having a proper social life outside of the internet, with some good old vanilla romance. Right? Given that there are a vast possible choices of anime with the romance tag in it to choose from, be it in the form of a light-hearted and playful slapping of some romance in Amagi Brilliant Park, to the full-on, tear-jerking, tissue-consuming and heart-wrenching ones where romance is the main crux of the anime, such as Clannad, I will now bring to you White Album 2. Before I begin, I am aware that the anime for White Album 2 is the first of a 3-part story where the anime only touches on the introductory chapter. Thus, I will go on with what I thought and felt based on the anime alone and to pay homage to it. White Album 2's premise basically encompasses the everyday life of a student viewed from the point of view of a boy named Haruki Kitahara. What seemed to be a mundane and boring phase of his life at Hojo High Prep School was spiced up with the fact that he is oftentimes relied on as if he is the president of his school's student council, despite not even being officially a part of it, and also the fact that he is a part of the Light Music Association. Even though his interest in music is high, as evident by him being a guitarist in the club, he plays the humble role as a backup to his friend Takeya due to the fact that he quote-unquote is bad and also had just started playing the instrument the very same year. Basically, if the anime were to continue as it is, it would have been another very generic slice of life where it's just about this story of another random guy at a certain high school trying to get good at playing the guitar because, before I forget to mention, this anime also has the music tag on it. Oh yeah, I should probably mention that the paths that lead up to these major events are enabled in the first place with the introduction of two of the other main characters in the story, which are Ogiso Setsuna and Toma Kazusa. Suffice to say that these two are Haruki's main love interest, but we'll get to that bit later on. White Album 2 revolves around two major plots with two other minor plot devices. Naturally, being an anime with the setting of being in a high school in Japan, the two biggest events that takes place are the renowned school festival and, with the three main casts being final years themselves, of course the inevitable graduation. The plot for the school festival is basically Kitahara wanting to do a musical performance on stage as his passion for it had been burning and was evident since the start of the anime. Meanwhile, on the academic and public relations department, he has got it down to a T. All that's left is for him to just live through his remaining school days and graduate, surely enough. Unlike its predecessor, albeit not correlating at all, which was White Album, revolved around the plot of making the everlasting song of White Album, and also given the fact that the anime centered itself in an idol world. However, the same cannot be said for White Album 2. Like, it got its music moments, but I would say it's pretty negligible because it's not what song it produces, it's the fact that music was the intermediary used for these characters to get to know each other in the first place and to further bond. Alright, now that we got the technicalities out of the way, I'll keep the introduction to the cast short and simple. Let's start off with Haruki Kitahara, our main character in this anime. This guy right here is our main guy. He is smart, pragmatic, conscientious, and an overall likable guy once you get to know him. However, viewed from a third-person point of view though, he might seem like the type of guy who is stuck up. Or to paint an even clearer light, imagine Ida Tenya from My Hero Academia. Yeah, he's that guy, but you install a knob on one of his mufflers and tone down the obnoxiety scale to 50% and voila, you get Haruki. Then there's Toma Kazusa. Basically best girl, but I'm not gonna judge. She dons her long black hair and blue eyes, complementing her cool, aloof, albeit cold nature. She tends to close herself off from her other peers due to her past being not one too savory to talk about. Mainly being quote-unquote abandoned by her mother and always lives her younger days alone. Oh, and did I mention she is an absolute unit as an alpha chat woman? Like, just listen to that voice, man.
バカ野郎。大事な手をこんな無駄なことに使わせやがって。
And finally, we have Ogiso Setsuna, the school beauty who falls behind but not short of Haruki's intelligence. Raised in a perfectly normal family from a loving mother and an active sibling to a dad who at times might be overbearing but loving. However, she also suffers from a severe paranoia of being left out from groups, especially ones that she is close friends to. Also, why does she remind me of someone? Nah, it's probably nothing. Of all the romance anime that I've watched, this was one of those animes that broke me. I'm talking negative levels of dopamine where I would actually be depressed for a few days. Heck, I even shed many tears finishing this show up till the end. Leaving my room wasn't even a coherent thought in my brain, and even the hot showers that I took felt lukewarm. Okay, that was an exaggeration, but don't get me wrong, by no means I mean it in a bad way. If the scoring system on Mal had something along the lines of 8.5 or 8.9, it would easily get somewhere around there for me. Let me start with why I loved White Album 2. Setting aside my biased opinion on Kazusa, where just look at this fine specimen of a 2D JPEG. Despite the show being only 13 episodes in length, I felt like the character developments was enough for them to actually fall in love with each other. Despite the fact that at the start of the anime, they just came to know each other with Haruki meeting Setsuna via her worries, while Kazusa a bit earlier, although not even a hint of friendship was established during that time. Look, all I want to say is that their love for each other didn't feel forced and was as natural as rivers float, because we can see the exact moment when they fell in love with each other. The other thing that I enjoyed was the anime's play on the school festival, where they used it to develop the feelings of the three casts among each other. Well, I say school festival, but really it's more on the training they did on their performance for the school festival. Admittedly, they did bond throughout the entire show, but it's more prominent for Kazusa during her training regimen for Haruki to prepare him as the guitarist. Bits and pieces of information was littered throughout the school festival arc. Well, it's more like that one toothbrush scene at episode 4 where Haruki was explicitly told by Kazusa not to be a big dumb and leave it in the bathroom, but of course Haruki being the big, dummy he is, he left it there. No, not the one from Nisei Monogatari. The toothbrush from episode 4 was a clear form of the Chekhov's gun, where at episode 5, the toothbrush immediately was the cause of what set Setsuna off, no pun intended of course, to confront Kazusa about it, thus igniting the spark of rivalry between them. Also, god damn, they made Setsuna a very fearsome character. Like, every time she was on screen with any of the other main casts, she inhales romantic feelings the moment they're released, and she pounces on it with confrontations upon confrontation, albeit disarmingly without intention. On the flip side, if it was anything I felt the anime was lacking were firstly in terms of the exposition of Ogiso and Kazusa's backstories. Like, the anime could have 100% make us viewers feel further emotionally invested if they had fleshed it out even just a bit more. With Ogiso, the fear of her being left out could have been expanded with maybe a little more flashback on her past to reinforce that fact instead of her just repeatedly bringing it up throughout the entire anime. Meanwhile, with Kazusa's situation was that she did make up with her mother, but it wasn't exactly addressed why things happened the way it did with Kazusa's misunderstandings of her mother's departure overseas. I was sad the fact that the anime almost portrayed Kazusa as the bad guy up until when they showed flashbacks on episode 10, where the flashbacks were of the events prior to this, but instead it was from her point of view instead. I also despise Haruki for the fact that he had hastily accepted Ogiso's love confession despite this was right after their performance, but alas, I had made peace that they're teenagers and they're still in their youth, so they easily get swept up by emotions in the heat of the moment and went with the flow. Oh well. Now for some conclusion to all of this. The last few episodes towards the end was the real tearjerker, where everything that had been done was done. where all things had already been carved into place, from the times that Haruki had been indecisive to the little things he did, where all of which amounted to him cheating on Setsuna. Setsuna, who was desperately clinging onto the past despite knowing the advantage it took to get what she wanted. Kazusa, who was always shutting herself from Haruki, pushing him away and refusing to voice out her true feelings, even if it's just a little bit earlier. Things had already spiraled into this unstoppable and irrevocable mess of emotions and eventually into pools of tears that just bore no fruit. Ultimately, as if time was static from the start to finish, no one won. Haruki was back to being by himself, but this time he's even more broken. Setsuna lost the friendship that she had always desired, but this time also at the price of Haruki as well, and Kazusa flew off to pursue her career and to forget what hurt her the most, losing two of her most precious friends. In the end, no one learned anything, and the viewers were left with a broken and throbbing heart that yearns for this entire heartbreak to end.